last week of weather, it's one extreme to the other.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're certainly in the depths of winter now, aren't we? We can just tell by the cold weather we've got. I mean, and that's pretty typical. I mean, July is always going to be a lot colder than May and June, simply because of the lag we have in solar radiation compared to day length. You know, it runs about 6 to 8 weeks behind day length. So, you know, we're getting into the trough of having of solar radiation arriving, which is really the driver. I mean, even though it might be sunny, we're still lacking in the solar radiation. But certainly last week in Canterbury was very welcome. It's been over 2 months really since we've had a significant precipitation event. I mean, we got a stack of rain in parts of Canterbury and some really nice snow on the ground, which the beauty about the snow is that it slowly melts and it all ends up going into the groundwater system. We won't see that in the groundwater system for probably 2 to 3 months. It takes that long to A, get to the shallowest aquifer, and B, down to the aquifers that we take most of our water from, especially for irrigation. So somewhere around about that sort of 45 to 55 millimetres across the plains. As you go a little further north, it's not quite as much, but it's all very welcome. But man, has it made it wet on the surface, really wet on the surface.
But it's mud, isn't it?
Yeah, it's turned the top 200 millimetres to slush really. But that's good. It will drain and it will have an effect on the groundwater system eventually. Places like the Wairarapa and Hawke's Bay in particular that we're familiar with as well. It is unbelievably wet. I was in Hawke's Bay last week prior to them getting 150 or more millimetres of rain, and there was water lying around on the Heritonga Plains in places where you would expect it to drain away quite quickly, you know, sort of get on these stony soils, and you would expect it to just disappear out of the system. Well, there was water lying in some of those paddocks. Drive past orchards and every little hollow had standing water in it, and well, they've got another 150 to 200 millimetres on top of that. So they certainly won't have any issues with groundwater. It will certainly fill up their aquifers. It will be some time before they can get on the ground and do things, and in particularly where you've got a big onion growing area in particular in the Hawke's Bay, it's going to have a detrimental effect on those crops that were out there and up, and there were some that were up. After last Thursday, they've probably still got water in the furrows and probably up as far as the tops of the beds, so that is not good for some of those horticultural crops which are up and out of the ground.
Because you can't win, can you?
No, you can't. It's a cruel business to be in agriculture. I mean, it's you know, we appear to be dealing more and more these days with the extremes. It's either never rains or it does rain and it never stops raining, and you know, this big rain, particularly for places like Hawke's Bay, they got snow down in places really close to Napier. I mean, the guy I was talking to last week that farms about 10 minutes from Napier Airport had 50 millimetres of snow on the ground. Well, that's not 10 minutes from the Napier Airport. It's not getting very high above sea level, and he had 50 millimetres of snow on the ground. So it's very cold as well there, as well as being very wet, and that combination is something that a lot of plants just don't like to endure. That, you know, they'll tolerate a few days of being really wet, but wet and cold is sort of, for a lot of those plants, sort of an intolerable situation to be in.
There's reports coming out now that even kumaras are going to be expensive because they're rotting in the ground.
Yeah, well, if you can't get on the ground to get things out, I mean, even if you drive around parts of Canterbury and parts of the Hawke's Bay, for example, they've still got potato crops to get out of the ground. Those main crops that are sitting there and have done quite nicely, well, they will be quite difficult to get out of the ground, and there will be a lot of soil attached to those potatoes when they come out of the ground now. Yep.
So looking out, I mean, normally you're sort of saying we need rain.
Yeah, look, in terms of groundwater, in terms of recharging the Canterbury aquifer system, you know, 55 millimetres will help. We're still a long way short of getting our water levels back to what we would consider a satisfactory and safe level for the next irrigation season. particularly north of the Rakaia River, and even more particular above the north of the Selwyn River. So if you go south of those two rivers, what we do have coming into those regions is alpine water. So water coming in the irrigation schemes, we get a lot of leakage, we get a lot of areas in the upper parts of the plains that are irrigated, and then which means we have relatively small soil moisture deficits when we do start getting these large rainfalls, and suddenly we get recharge. And those aquifers and those groundwater levels are in much better shape than if you come north of the Selwyn River and head into North Canterbury.
So the future, as far as NIWA are concerned, are they giving us any clues about what's coming down the tubes?
It's pretty normal, you know. It's not.
They love that word, don't they?
It's neither one nor the other. You know, there's a good chance that we're going to have about normal conditions. So does that mean we're going to get rainfall? Does it mean we're not going to get rainfall? And we are in a bit of a. If you look at it, we are in a bit of a hiatus as far as the weather is concerned. I mean, this is the. You know, if you look at what happened in Canterbury in the last week, it's the first time probably since 2013 or 2014 that we've had a reasonable amount of snow sitting on the ground on the plains, and so that could be a good sign that something else more could come. You know, open up the gateway to the south again and give us another decent southerly or southeasterly and dump a pile of snow and rain. I don't know. I think we're in a wait and see mode at the moment.
And really, it's just a case of keeping up to date as far as your maintenance is concerned, because it could be soon.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, once we hit September, you know, we're not going to have any issues in August this year, that's for sure, and probably not until the first or second week of September. But once we get into that period, if we go through a period now without a lot of rainfall, and we get into those spring-like conditions, then we need to think about things in the middle of September.
Tony, thank you very much indeed. Continuing on about the story about horticulture and vegetables, Robin Oakley is next.